Well, Americans ponder how many intelligence briefings President-elect Trump is taking part in. The House Speaker, Paul Ryan, is schooling the outgoing president, Barack Obama.
Presidents don't write laws. Article 2 of the Constitution says that presidents faithfully execute the laws, and Article 1 says Congress writes the laws.
I've got a pen and I've got a phone. Whenever I can take steps without legislation, I will.
The legislative branch, the one that is directly elected by the people to write laws for the people, is the branch that writes our laws. The executive branch does not.
Okay, so President-elect Trump is also not opposed to using executive orders. Just 2 weeks ago in Louisiana, Mr. Trump outlined how he planned to act without Congress.
One of my first executive orders will be to ask the Department of Labor to investigate all visa abuses that undermine jobs and wages for the American worker. This is about our country now.
In November, Mr. Trump also outlined a list of executive actions he would take in his first 100 days in office. He would withdraw from trade deals, he would kill energy regulations, and he would impose a 5-year ban on lawmakers becoming lobbyists after leaving office, among other things. So let's talk about that and more. I'm joined by CNN political analyst and senior editor at The Atlantic, Ron Brownstein, and politics editor at TheRoot.com and political science and communications professor, Jason Johnson. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
So, Jason, it appears that Donald Trump is also going to use executive actions. So is Paul Ryan putting his eggs in a basket too soon?
I mean, look, everyone has a problem with a president using their executive power when it's not what you want. If there are lessons that we could make a video about Paul Ryan as well, that it's Congress's job to actually sort of implement a budget, that it's Congress's job to actually do something about when a president puts someone for the Supreme Court. So this is just, spiking the football. The Republicans want to be snide because they won the presidency. But Donald Trump is going to use executive orders just like Barack Obama did, because when you don't think Congress is acting fast enough, that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, the cat's out of the bag. It's been happening not just with President Obama, but in presidents past too, Ron.
Right. The long-term trend is clearly toward presidents pushing the boundaries of executive authority. And part of that, Carol, is because the situation we're in now, starting in January, has become the anomaly. We've seen unified control of government, the same party holding the White House and the Congress, for only 12 of the past 48 years. And when it's happened, it hasn't lasted very long. And when you have divided government and more kind of parliamentary-style government where it's difficult to get bipartisan agreement with the president and members of Congress of the other party, what we've seen is, whether it was George W. Bush on national security or President Obama on a series of domestic issues, particularly immigration, presidents pushing the boundaries of executive authority. And I'd underline one other point, which is that the other thing we've learned over the past 15 years is that it's really hard for Congress to stop a president who wants to push the boundaries of executive authority. The real limit on their ability is the courts, not so much the Congress.
So maybe Paul Ryan is banking on the fact that Donald Trump is a Republican and the House is Republican controlled, as is the Senate. So shouldn't the divisiveness and the need for executive orders go away because of that, Jason?
Oh, no. Now that you're all on the same team, everyone wants to line up to get what they want. I think the Republicans will be unified in some policies, but I think now that they control not only the presidency, not only the Senate, not only the House, but a lot of governorships, I think every single Republican who has a particular issue, whether it's a moral issue or an economic issue or an infrastructure issue, they're all going to be lining up at the White House to get what they want. And once those requests come in, you're going to have conflicts. The similar things have happened when Democrats ran all the different branches of government. So I think Paul Ryan, again, he feels really confident right now, but once those Christmas lists come in, he's going to have just as much difficulty wrangling together his caucus as did his predecessor, John Boehner, and Democrats like Nancy Pelosi before him.
Okay, so something voters might not be too jazzed about because they really like that term, drain the swamp, Ron, right? Well, Newt Gingrich wrote something very interesting. He says Donald Trump now wants to end the use of drain the swamp because, quote, I'm told he now just disclaims that. He now says it was cute, but he doesn't want to use it anymore. What do you make of that?
Well, look, I mean, you have a situation where they have appointed a government that includes, lots of people from Wall Street, wealthy cabinet members, and a lot of more ideological appointments than you might have expected from the campaign, where he was kind of more kind of a heterodox kind of candidate. He has appointed something that really reflects more the different aspects of the Republican coalition. And I think that the kind of some of the ethics concerns, maybe not only what we're talking about in terms of where the appointees come from, but the questions about his kids. There's a certain incentive for Republicans on the Hill to not push these as hard as you might, as certainly as Democrats would want them to push, because they want to keep a unified front to move forward a policy agenda that has been building, that has been kind of like building behind the dam during the 2 terms of President Obama. And I expect a lot of movement on a lot of fronts very quickly from this unified government, many of which are going to be very controversial, even perhaps to some of Trump's voters on issues like Medicare, for example, converting that into a premium support system, as Paul Ryan wants to do. And I think in the service of that, I think many of these ethics issues are going to be somewhat sublimated.
So is it just a simple a matter of it's not so easy to drain the swamp, Jason?
No, I just don't think he ever had any intention of draining the swamp. There's all sorts of things that Donald Trump said that he has no intention of doing. He talked about getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, and now he's waffled on that. He talked about draining the swamp, and he's brought a whole bunch of his cronies in. He talked about making an administration full of America, and it has more white men and fewer women and fewer people of color than the last 2 or 3 administrations, including Bush combined. So I'm not surprised that Donald Trump has backtracked on a lot of his promises. What I will find interesting going forward is when he does actually get into office and has to get things done, how many times is he going to be able to backtrack on promises before it has a consequence in 2018 or even some of these governor's races in 2017?
All right, I have
real quick,
go ahead, Ron.
Real quick, Carol. The consequence may be more actually fulfilling some of the promises. I mean, I do think they are going to move forward on repealing the Affordable Care Act. I think the biggest single question they face from a policy perspective is whether, in fact, they try to restructure Medicare the way Paul Ryan has been proposing since 2010, because many of the Trump voters, which was dominated by blue-collar, older, and non-urban whites, don't like that idea. So it may be going forward that is kind of more explosive than moving back.
Okay, we'll have to see. Ron Brownstein, Jason Johnson, many thanks. Still to come.